Upon waking up, Su Yuan had already crossed the realm of cultivation, and possessed the ability to reincarnate into one's own offspring after death. As long as there are enough descendants, Su Yuan will remain immortal and eternal. So Su Yuan set a small goal for himself, to have 100 million offspring first. When other cultivators mock Su Yuan for not seeking self-improvement, only in the next life can he become a Taoist. Su Yuan, however, felt relieved and couldn't help but sigh, "I accept your auspicious words. The immortal road is long, time passes by. This is a story that cannot be achieved in a lifetime, so come back in the next life." Keywords of the novel. I am in the realm of immortality, reincarnation and immortality without pop-ups. I am in the realm of immortality, reincarnation and immortality. Download the complete text. I am in the realm of immortality, reincarnation and immortality. Read the latest chapter on reincarnation and immortality. Chapter 1. Awakening. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Awakening, Name. Li Changfeng, Su Yuan, Age. 18, Reincarnation. 9th Generation, Talent. Burning Jade and Stone, Burning of Jade and Stone. Burning of Su Yuan, gaining 10 times more power than oneself. The longer this talent is triggered and maintained, the more Su Yuan burns. Inheritance of past life talents. Danger perception, danger perception. You can capture dangers that ordinary people cannot detect. Staring at the information in his mind, Su Yuan reluctantly sat up. The body of this life is also too weak and weak. Su Yuan felt the dizziness surging in his heart and let out a light sigh. Think for a moment. Su Yuan slowly stood up and walked to a huge bronze mirror not far away. A pale young man appeared on the mirror. Congenital physical deficiency. Keep going, I won't live to be 20 years old. Su Yuan's gaze remained calm. My heart is silently thinking. Su Yuan is a traveler. More precisely, it is a combination of a traveler and a reincarnation. After death, one will reincarnate on their own bloodline descendants. In addition, each reincarnation will also randomly obtain a talent. Just random talents can only be useful in the current life, once entering the next life. It will refresh unless you choose to inherit the talent. For example, the talent of danger perception was randomly acquired by the 4th generation of Su Yuan. Being able to perceive dangers that ordinary people cannot perceive. This ability often plays a crucial role. That's why it was inherited by Su Yuan one generation after another. In the year 638 of the Wuli reign, 50 years have passed since the previous life. Su Yuan quickly absorbed the memories in his mind and sat down on the bed again. His current body feels difficult to stand up for a while. The talent in this life belongs to the attack talent, which is quite good. Su Yuan calmed down and nodded slightly. Talent. Burning Jade and Stone, Burning of Jade and Stone. Burning of Su Yuan, gaining 10 times more power than oneself. The longer this talent is triggered and maintained, the more Su Yuan burns. Li Changfeng, 18 years old, was born in Heishan City. His father, Li Weifeng, was a famous wealthy businessman from 100 miles nearby. Su Yuan pondered in his heart. Li Changfeng, also known as Su Yuan's current name. However, Su Yuan has no impression of this lineage and should be a descendant of an extremely remote bloodline. Since the second emperor discovered himself, he was able to reincarnate into his own bloodline descendants. In every subsequent life, Su Yuan planted crops all over the world. For hundreds or thousands of years, 6 major veins have been formed. The other branches are as vast as a sea of smoke. 9 lifetimes Su Yuan sat on the bed, his thoughts fluctuating. In his first life, Su Yuan gang traveled to this world. Becoming a powerless commoner, with an initial talent that never forgets. Su Yuan passed the imperial examination and entered the officialdom. Finally, before retiring, he was ranked as a fourth-rank official of the current dynasty. Afterwards, Su Yuan grew tired of the intrigue in the officialdom. Simply enter the martial arts world and pursue one's own strength. That's it. The second. The third accumulated over several generations. Su Yuan undoubtedly became the strongest martial artist in the world. Originally, Su Yuan thought he could keep walking on the path of martial arts. However, it wasn't until he truly stood at the pinnacle of martial arts that he realized there were limits to martial arts. In order to break this limit, Su Yuan consulted countless ancient books and secret scriptures. Finally, it was discovered that there were cultivators who could fly to heaven and escape from the earth in this world. Those powerful cultivators are almost omnipotent in picking stars, taking the moon, moving mountains and filling the sea. Martial arts have limits. However, there is no cultivation of immortality. Therefore, starting from the fifth age, Su Yuan's goal was to become a cultivator. Just after 4 generations of exploration, Su Yuan realized. To become a cultivator, one must have a spiritual root. Without spiritual roots, one cannot perceive the power of heaven and earth. There is no possibility of becoming a cultivator. During this period, Su Yuan made countless attempts. I wanted to avoid the limitations of my spiritual roots, but there was still no progress. As time goes by, the memories of this current life have been completely fused by Su Yuan. Li Changfeng, the young master of the Li family in Heishan City. The Li family moved to Heishan City 150 years ago, and after so many years of hard work, they accumulated a huge family business. Unfortunately, in this generation. But it turned out to be a weak and sickly heir like Li Changfeng. People who are weak and sickly, and even those who go out for a walk can suffer from wind cold. Placed in an ordinary household, he would have died long ago. That is to say, the Li family has a generous wealth. Regardless of the cost, he went around to hire famous doctors and purchase valuable medicines for Su Yuan. Only then did Su Yuan live to be 18 years old. Just then, a light and cheerful voice came. Young Master Changfeng. A moment later, a girl wearing a light blue dress walked over with small steps. The girl's name is Aman and she is about 16 or 17 years old. The pupils appear blue, indicating a lineage of the Hu people from the western regions. For over 600 years since the establishment of the Wu dynasty, it was inevitable to intermarry with people of different ethnicities. Therefore, mixed race like Aman is very common, and Li Changfeng was also pitiful at first. I just bought her as my personal maid. Young Master Changfeng, this is lotus seed soup made from purple lotus seeds. I heard that the high-ranking officials and nobles in Baiyujing like to drink it this way, which is very nourishing for the body. Aman carefully opened the food box while introducing Su Yuan. Soon, a steaming bowl of purple lotus seed soup was brought to Su Yuan. Young master, drink quickly. If it gets cold, it won't taste good. Aman took the initiative to try the temperature of the lotus seed soup, then he turned his head and glanced at Su Yuan's colorless face. A hint of heartache couldn't help but rise in my heart. Young Master Changfeng is kind and has never treated her as a servant. In recent years, natural and man-made disasters have been rampant, and the Wu dynasty is on the verge of collapse. The Li family has opened warehouses multiple times to provide relief to refugees who have fled from other places, which is the result of young Master Changfeng's plea to his own father. Such a great benevolent person should live a long life of 100 years. How can we not live long? Aman lowered his head and looked disheartened. Young Master Changfeng doesn't live long. It's not a secret. But rather the conclusions drawn from the diagnosis and treatment of many renowned doctors and physicians. Over the years, despite relying on various medications to sustain life. But man noticed the deteriorating health of young Master Changfeng. The taste is good. Su Yuan's voice interrupted Aman's thoughts. Aman looked up. I saw Su Yuan pick up the bowl and gently take a sip of lotus seed soup. In less than a moment, a bowl of purple lotus seed soup was then consumed by Su Yuan. The young master has a good appetite today. Almond quickly tidied up the bowls and spoons, put them in the food box, and then stood up to clean them. Su Yuan watched Almond leave and walked out of the house to leisurely stroll around the courtyard. The urgent task now is to make up for the shortfall in the body as soon as possible. Su Yuan thought to himself that his physical problems were mainly congenital deficits brought about by his mother's birth. The whole body is like a riddled sieve, unable to retain the vast majority of nutrients. This is also the reason why Su Yuan has been taking tonics for over a decade, but his body is still weak and has not improved. Nutrients for tonics often quickly pass away as soon as they enter the body. The nourishment of the body naturally has little effect. If that's all, it's nothing. At most, the body is weaker than a normal person, and living to be 50 or 60 years old is not a problem. But as time goes by, this speed of passage becomes increasingly severe. Since a few years ago, Su Yuan's essence and spirit have also begun to fade away. The consequence of this was that Su Yuan was basically in a state of lethargy. So to cure Su Yuan, the first step is to solve his body, which is riddled with wounds and holes like a sieve. But this problem comes from the mother's womb and belongs to the congenital deficit caused by premature birth. Even those doctors who claim to be divine doctors are helpless. However, these were not too difficult for Su Yuan. In the previous 8 reincarnations, Su Yuan not only reached unprecedented heights in martial arts. The same goes for medical skills. In just a moment, Su Yuan's mind came up with 23 methods that could solve his current physical problems. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Eternal Life. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Eternal Life 23 methods each have their own advantages and disadvantages. The simplest way is to have a great master above the 4 realms use his own origin. Wash the marrow of the Su Yuan Book of Changes. This method is the most effective and has no hidden dangers. It only takes 2 hours to repair Su Yuan's body, which is full of wounds and holes. However, how rare is a master? Not to mention being a great master above the 4 realms. For over 600 years since the establishment of the Wu dynasty, it is clear that there were no more than 20 great masters above the 4 realms. In this era, it is even less. In this world, martial arts are divided into acquired, innate, master, and martial saint. Among them, there are 12 realms acquired, 9 realms innate, 6 realms master, and 3 realms martial saint. 99 out of 10 martial artists in the world wander around the 12 realms of the day after tomorrow. A very small number have crossed the level of the innate 9 realms. As for the masters, each master who has achieved great martial arts skills is enough to establish a sect, and not 1 out of 1,000,000 martial artists can emerge. Actually, before Su Yuan, there was no such realm as a master. Even the division of innate realm is very vague. The strongest are only warriors born in the 3rd realm. But Su Yuan carried on the past and opened up the future, relying on the accumulation of several generations. Hardly expanding the innate level of martial arts to the 9th realm. And above the 9th innate realm, it also opened up the 6 realms of the Grandmaster and the 3 realms of the martial saint. Achieved the first martial saint in history. Unfortunately, this is the limit. The qi and blood of Wusheng are surging like a vast ocean, no matter how strong, compared to the almost boundless power of heaven and earth. Nature is nothing. This is also the reason why Su Yuan has been pursuing to become a cultivator for several generations. A cultivator can wield the power of heaven and earth, and this alone is worthy of the word cultivator. However, to become a cultivator, one must have a spiritual root. Ling Zhen is the medium that perceives the power of heaven and earth. Without spiritual roots, even the most stunning talent. I cannot become a cultivator either. Amidst the ups and downs of his thoughts, Su Yuan's attention shifted once again to his body. In fact, with the backing left by the 8 generations before the Su Yuan dynasty, it is not difficult to forcibly mobilize a great master above the 4 realms to cleanse the essence of the Book of Changes for him. But the human heart is unpredictable. At present, he has just awakened his true spirit and is in his weakest state. Naturally, I am not very willing to take risks and meet with a great master who can threaten my own life. Ah man! After pondering for a moment, Su Yuan called Amon up to him. Buy all the herbs on this back. Su Xian took out a piece of paper and wrote dozens of medicinal herb names on it, asking Amon to go to the pharmacy to buy them back. These dozens of medicinal herbs have been specially matched. It will form a medicinal soup to replenish one's own vitality. Take this medicinal soup and combine it with the body tonifying technique created by the 4th generation of Su Yuan. At the latest, the physical issues will be completely resolved within 2 months. 2 months later, Su Yuan can still afford to wait. Next, Su Yuan drinks a bowl of Yuanqi medicine soup every day, and at other times, he secretly works on tonifying his body. Under the balance of internal and external factors, the body improved at a visible speed to the naked eye. In his spare time, Su Yuan began to inquire about the situation of Heishan City. Heishan City is a city located next to the Black Mountain, although it is somewhat bustling. But compared to the real big cities of the Wu dynasty, it is clearly far inferior. This is also something strange about Su Yuan. His ability to reincarnate is not aimless, randomly selecting a bloodline descendant for reincarnation. But rather, they will reincarnate according to their own preferences. Simply put, Su Yuan will be reincarnated into the younger generation who is most likely to achieve his own goals. For example, in the previous life, when Su Yuan broke the mystery of pregnancy, he was already an old man who was already in his prime. This old man has no children, no daughters, no relatives, and is about to die of old age. But why did Su Yuan reincarnate into the other person? It is precisely because the old man has a unique physique, which is extremely rare in Kendo. Therefore, in just 10 years, the 8th generation of Su Yuan became the peak martial saint who dominated the world. And in terms of attacking, it can be said to be the strongest in several generations. Just now Su Yuan did not find any special physical condition in Li Changfeng. Strange. Su Yuan stood in the courtyard, leisurely practicing a set of health-preserving techniques. This boxing technique can greatly stimulate the whole body's qi and blood, and has great benefits for the body's recovery. In theory, even in this lifetime, there has never been the special swordsmanship physique of the 8th generation. Su Yuan will also be reincarnated to the most powerful families, such as the current imperial family of the Wu dynasty. As long as Su Yuan is willing, he can fully reincarnate as the emperor of the Qin Wu dynasty. More than 600 years ago, it was Su Yuan who dominated the chaotic times, swept across various countries, and created the prosperous era of the Wu dynasty. The current royal family of the Wu dynasty. They are all descendants of Su Yuan, flowing with his bloodline. In addition to the royal family of the Wu dynasty, the other 5 main bloodlines are also good choices. At least it is also a powerful force with immense power. Reincarnation into such a family can not only provide great help to Su Yuan, but at least save him a lot of time. But Su Yuan was reincarnated into the Li family. Although the Li family is a well-known wealthy merchant in Heishan City, that's all. There is no possibility of comparison with the 6 main veins left by Su Yuan. Forget it, let's take a closer look. Su Yuan didn't continue to think too much. The ability to reincarnate is already extremely incredible. Pursuing its principles is not something that Su Yuan can currently achieve. What Su Yuan desires the most now is to become a cultivator. Starting from the 5th age, Su Yuan regarded cultivators as his ultimate goal. However, let Su Yuan plan and calculate. But he never had the chance to cultivate immortals. Because only by possessing spiritual roots can one become a cultivator. That is to say, Su Yuan wants to become a cultivator. You must have a spiritual root. According to Su Yuan's understanding over the past few lifetimes, there are two ways in which spiritual roots are born. One is natural birth. Among billions of sentient beings, there are always a few who will stand out. Born with a spiritual root. Another type is genetics. Generally speaking, cultivators with spiritual roots, the likelihood of having spiritual roots in children born will greatly increase. The former relies on probability and can only be used as an alternative. Perhaps after reincarnation for centuries and thousands of generations, one cannot encounter a descendant with spiritual roots. Su Yuan mainly placed his hopes on the second approach. Find a female cultivator with spiritual roots and then spread her branches and leaves. The probability of offspring giving birth to spiritual roots will greatly increase. And according to the principle of reincarnation based on merit. As long as there are descendants of Su Yuan who possess spiritual roots, it must be Su Yuan's reincarnation. Just. It seems that cultivators are not in the same world as ordinary people. For hundreds of years, Su Yuan used all means. I have not obtained the accurate whereabouts of even one cultivator. While pondering, Su Yuan stretched his entire body in bones. I have no worries in my heart. The ninth reincarnation has already elevated Su Yuan's vision to an incredible level. It is no longer limited to a certain life. Even in this lifetime, there is still no information related to cultivators. Su Yuan won't have any surprises either. If it doesn't work in one life, wait for the next. If the next life doesn't work, then look at the next life. There will always be a life of 10 reincarnation, 100 reincarnation, 1,000 reincarnation, and 1,000 reincarnation to achieve one's goals. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Shangguan Girl. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Shangguan Girl 2 months later. Gollum Gollum. Su Yuan picked up the medicinal soup from the stone table and took a sip. The medicinal soup entered the throat and immediately turned into streams of heat, rushing towards the limbs and bones. This bowl of medicinal soup is made by boiling dozens of precious medicinal herbs, and you should drink one bowl every morning, noon, and evening. It is a diet prescribed by Su Yuan based on his current body that maximizes the nourishment of vitality. It's almost restored. Su Yuan secretly thought to himself that 2 months had passed before he knew it. At this point, the body with many wounds and holes is no different from a normal person. You can prepare for cultivation. Su Yuan once again asked the maid Amon to prepare some cultivation materials. Before having enough strength to protect himself, Su Yuan had no intention of leaving Black Mountain City. Time passes by. The news of Su Yuan's physical recovery quickly spread. This cannot be concealed. The maids and guards in the mansion, watching their young master helplessly, have gone from being afraid to leave the house in the past to now having a rosy complexion and occasionally practicing several sets of health exercises without breathing. Su Yuan's explanation for this is that he accidentally discovered a prescription while flipping through ancient books. After trying, I realized that it was very beneficial to my body. So I made tonic diet according to the prescription every day, and my body was getting better and better. This explanation is quite acceptable. After all, the young master of the Li family's love for ancient books is not a secret. Especially those isolated texts passed down hundreds or thousands of years ago. Perhaps there is a prescription recorded above that can replenish the body's vitality. Compared to the astonishment of outsiders, the Li mansion is much more complex. Especially the concubines of Su Yuan's physical father. Although on the surface, they are all happy for the recovery of their own young master's body. But in the dark, his face was extremely ugly. Originally, with Su Yuan's body, he couldn't live for many years. After Su Yuan's death, the Li family will naturally belong to their son in the future. And now, this plan has naturally failed. Several concubines are aware of the master's feelings towards Su Yuan. As long as Su Yuan lives one day, he will be the undisputed heir of the Li family. No one can shake it. In this world of martial arts, one must cultivate essence and innate qi. Grandmasters need to cultivate gods. On the bed, Su Yuan sat cross-legged, thinking to himself. The essence, energy, and spirit are the fundamental essence of human beings. Their previous bodies began to leak their essence, and in the end, even the spirit was passing away. Only then can there be almost no medicine stone to cure. In the 6 realms of the Grandmaster established by Su Yuan, gods are equally crucial. A master who begins to refine his divine skills can make a warrior at the peak of the 9th realm collapse with just one glance. The acquired environment, Su Yuan felt the slow flow of essence in his body and nodded slightly. At this moment, his body's essence is converging, which is truly a characteristic of his acquired environment. Compared to the ethereal nature of refining gods, refining essence is much simpler. In layman's terms, it's just eating. By continuously absorbing external energy into the body, and then using specific methods to activate the essence and qi. Now there is a faint surge of heat in Su Yuan's body, indicating that he has completed his essence training and become a martial artist in the postnatal realm. If it were someone else who has just entered the realm of nurture, they would definitely stop and stabilize their state. But Su Yuan continue. The trace of essence in Su Yuan's body began to flow along his limbs and bones. Since the 4th generation, Su Yuan has stood at the pinnacle of martial arts, dividing the 9 innate realms and opening up 2 major realms. The Grandmaster and the Martial Saint. It can be said that no one in the world can understand the essence of martial arts better than Su Yuan. Not to mention the limited postnatal realm, even the Grandmaster and Martial Saint were familiar to Su Yuan, and there was no such thing as a stable realm. Who? Suck. Su Yuan's chest began to rise and fall in an extremely regular pattern. At this moment, Su Yuan suddenly opened his eyes. Immediately after, a knock on the door rang out. Chang Feng, you haven't rested yet, have you? In Su Yuan's mind, an image of a wealthy middle-aged man emerged subconsciously. Li Weifeng. That is the father of this body. The leader of the Li family in Heishan City, a famous wealthy merchant from 100 miles nearby. Compared to the previous generations of clan leaders of the Li family who were cautious, Li Weifeng is known for his courage to fight, and he actually started a large part of the Li family's business. It is precisely because of this that the Li family has become a thorn in the side of many forces in Black Mountain City. 18 years ago, Su Yuan, the mother of this body, died as a result. Pushing open the door, Su Yuan saw a middle-aged man who was slightly overweight, standing outside with a concerned expression on his face. Chang Feng. Li Weifeng looked at his son in front of him, feeling mixed emotions for a moment. Over the years, he has hired countless famous doctors who are at a loss for Su Yuan's health. Originally, Li Weifeng was preparing to sell his family property and take his son to seek medical treatment in Baiyujing. Baiyujing is the capital of the Wu dynasty and the most prosperous place in the world. It is said that the 3 characters, Baiyujing, were personally taken by the Wuchao Taizu, who fought against invincible opponents in the world more than 600 years ago. If there is any place in the world that can cure a son, then it can only be Baiyujing. It's all my father's fault. If it weren't for him offending so many people back then, you wouldn't have suffered for 18 years, and your mother wouldn't have died either. Li Weifeng's eyes were slightly red. It's all over, Su Yuan shook his head. How spirited was Li Weifeng when he just took over the Li family back then. With his own means, he greatly improved the Li family's business in just a few years. However, these made another big family in Heishan City envious at the time. As a result, the 2 sides engaged in a series of struggles. Su Yuan's body and mother were the victims of the Li family's open and secret struggles with other forces at that time. Of course, Su Yuan was also aware that at that time, Li Weifeng had no other choice. After chatting for a while, Li Weifeng reminded Su Yuan not to go out recently. The outside is too chaotic, with rebel forces raging in various states. Our Qingzhou is located in the south, and the flames of war cannot burn here in a short period of time. Li Weifeng said anxiously. Although there won't be any problems in Heishan City for the time being, if the Wu dynasty fails to quell the rebels for a long time, the chaos in Qingzhou will also happen sooner or later. I don't know if Wu Chao can make it through this time. Li Weifeng sighed. For a businessman like him, he naturally prefers a peaceful and prosperous era. In times of chaos, although there are many opportunities, risks can also skyrocket. A slight mistake can lead to irreparable disaster. Su Yuan listened beside him without speaking. He was not surprised by the chaos in the Wu dynasty. However, with the rise of rebel forces today, Su Yuan could smell other conspiracies. It seems that there are other pushers behind these rebels. Which forces are they? Su Yuan secretly guessed in his heart. For generations, Su Yuan has devoted all his strength to the world, although no trace of the true cultivator has been found. But they found forces related to cultivators. There are no true cultivators among these forces. They are not descendants of true cultivators. But it has a certain relationship with cultivators. Before Su Xian, these forces were high and mighty, either hiding from the world or transcending others. However, when Su Yuan opened up the Wu dynasty and implemented a new policy, it violated the interests of these forces. Therefore, every 100 or 200 years, these forces will jump out in an attempt to overthrow the Wu dynasty. Forget it. I won't say that anymore. Li Weifeng looked at his son and said, since Changfeng's body has recovered, our Li family's family business can be prepared to take over, and I can also relax a bit. Li Weifeng was about to remind Su Yuan a few words. A butler-like man walked quickly into the room and whispered to Li Weifeng. Master, Shangguan Miss came over to resign. This statement came out. Li Weifeng was slightly taken aback. Who is Shangguan, Mississippi? Li Weifeng frowned and said. The steward immediately explained, half a year ago, you went to Heishan to pray for Master Changfeng. When you returned, you found Shangguan girl at the foot of the mountain. At that time, Shangguan girl fell to the ground and became unconscious. The master was kind and asked someone to take Shangguan girl back to the mansion to take care of her. After the steward finished speaking, he waited beside him. I remember. Li Weifeng patted his head and looked at the steward, saying, look at my memory. Where is that Shangguan girl? Just outside the yard, the butler replied in a low voice. Okay, let her in, Li Weifeng nodded and said. Yes, the steward immediately turned around and walked out of the room. Su Yuan frowned slightly strangely upon seeing this. In his memory, his father Li Weifeng was certainly kind and generous. You can bring a woman with unclear background into the mansion. And take care of it for 6 months. It's obviously a bit unbelievable. After a moment, a delicate young girl walked over. Her skin is snow-white, and her long hair is tied behind her. Wearing a light purple long skirt. Thank you very much for Chief Li's care over the past 6 months. The girl spoke with a dignified expression and a soft voice. It's a small matter, Li Weifeng waved his hand. Just as they were talking. However, Su Yuan's heart became solemn beside him. Dong! 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 Su Yuan looked at the young girl named Shangguan not far away. The eyebrows began to twitch faintly. Talent, danger perception, warning. Danger perception. You can capture dangers that ordinary people cannot detect, danger extremely dangerous. The seemingly harmless young girl in front of me, surprisingly, it gave Su Yuan an extreme sense of crisis. This sense of crisis comes from innate danger perception. According to Su Yuan's experience. When he felt this level of crisis, he was basically powerless to turn it around. But how could this be possible? Although Su Yuan is only in the acquired realm at this moment. With the secret techniques accumulated over several generations, the ordinary innate realm cannot kill him at all. Combined with the random talent of this life, jade and stone burn together. Unless it is a strong individual at the level of innate ninth realm or half-step master. Otherwise, it is absolutely impossible for oneself to experience such a degree of oppression. This Shangguan girl looks only 17 or 18 years old. How could she have the strength to threaten Su Yuan's life? Su Yuan rubbed his brow and did not act recklessly. But quickly analyze it in your heart. Firstly, talent, danger perception, will not make mistakes. Secondly, this girl named Shangguan girl must have never practiced martial arts. As an existence that has stood at the peak of martial arts for generations, even though Su Yuan did not have the strength of his heyday, he still had some vision. He can see. The Shangguan girl had no martial demeanor on her body. I am not familiar with martial arts, and it can even be said that I have never been in contact with martial arts. But it has at least half the strength of a master. Su Yuan's eyes lit up with ripples in the depths. Hundreds or even thousands of thoughts quickly flashed through his mind. In the ninth reincarnation, Su Yuan's thoughts and concerns had already exceeded the imagination of ordinary people. Almost in the blink of an eye, there was speculation in my heart. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Immortal Cultivators. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Immortal Cultivators. Immortal Cultivator. Su Yuan's thoughts were full of twists and turns, and there was only one thought in his mind. Apart from cultivators, Su Yuan couldn't think of any other possibilities. Need to know. Su Yuan speculates that this Shangguan girl has at least the strength of a half-step master. This is at least. As for the specific strength of the other party, it is not very clear. Master half-step. Grandmaster. Grandmaster. Even stronger. Talent, danger perception, can only perceive danger, it cannot determine the level of danger. I didn't expect it. Su Yuan looked at the young girl who was talking to Li Weifeng. The original mind of Gu Jing Wubua began to ripple. Since the fifth age, Su Yuan regarded cultivators as his ultimate goal. However, let Su Yuan search the world, only a few forces related to cultivators were found. There are no true cultivators. If it is not explicitly recorded in ancient books, and some discoveries were made from those forces related to cultivators. I'm afraid Su Yuan would suspect whether cultivators really exist or not. Nowadays, a true cultivator appears so clearly in front of us, even though Su Yuan's ninth reincarnation has lasted for more than 1,000 years, his mind is also slightly agitated. At the same time, Su Yuan also felt a sense of enlightenment in his heart. Why was he reincarnated to the Li family in Heishan City under the principle of reincarnation based on merit? It is precisely because of the Shangguan girl in front of me. Interacting with a true cultivator is undoubtedly the most coveted thing for Su Yuan in many lifetimes. Belongs to the highest priority situation. So, this reincarnation will give up everything and come here. As for why Li Weifeng brought him to the mansion and took care of him for 6 months. That would be even simpler. By the means of cultivators, it's perfectly normal to affect an ordinary person. Of course, no matter what Su Yuan thinks in his heart. His face remained unchanged and he did not make any actions that did not match his current identity. Su Yuan's goal is now very clear. It's this girl named Shangguan girl. Regardless of the method used, keep the Shangguan girl in front of you by your side, and spread branches and leaves with the other party, giving birth to as many offspring as possible. Pave the way for the next generation. This is also Su Yuan's plan for several generations. To find a true cultivator and then combine with him. To become a cultivator, one must have a spiritual root. The spirit root is determined by heaven and cannot be acquired by the day after tomorrow. At least based on the information currently known to Su Yuan, it can only be so. The only way to greatly increase the chances of obtaining spiritual roots is through genetics. Parents are cultivators, and offspring are likely to have spiritual roots as well. Su Yuan only needs to merge his own bloodline with the bloodline of Shangguan girl. The offspring who are nurtured are highly likely to have spiritual roots. In this way, following the principle of reincarnation based on merit, the possibility of having a spiritual root in one's next life or the next life will skyrocket. My thoughts fluctuate. Su Yuan's gaze once again fell on the Shangguan girl. According to the experience of the 8th generation of the Su Yuan era, the imperial maiden had countless experiences. There are only two types of matters between men and women. One is voluntary. The second is coercion. Nowadays, coercion is clearly difficult to achieve. The crisis of life and death perceived solely through his talent for danger perception made Su Yuan abandon this idea. Forcing cannot be achieved. That's voluntary. Simply put, Su Yuan needs to make this Shangguan girl fall in love with him. Capturing the heart of a woman of the opposite sex was as simple as Su Yuan's. In the previous 8 generations, Su Yuan had done many such things in order to have more offspring. However, if the opposite sex here is a cultivator, Su Yuan is not very sure. Even so, it still needs to be tried. After all, this was Su Yuan's first time seeing a living cultivator, so he naturally didn't want to give up. Half an hour later. At the entrance of Li Mansion, Li Weifeng and Su Yuan gazed at the Shangguan girl who was gradually moving away. Su Yuan's expression showed no signs of change, but a regretful expression appeared in his heart. It's very obvious. Su Yuan's plan fell through. The Shangguan girl did not continue to stay in the mansion. In fact, this was also expected by Su Yuan, not to mention that the other party was a cultivator above ordinary people. Even an ordinary woman needs a certain amount of time to win without resorting to coercive measures. And Su Yuan and the Shangguan girl were well calculated, and they only spent less than half an hour together. And through this half-hour conversation, Su Yuan also vaguely sensed the other party's attitude towards vulgarity. That is a posture that is towering, as if a deity is overlooking the world. There is a gap in the essence of life between the two, just like how farmers view their own livestock. Take life and death as you please. No. It was not even in my eyes, as if seeing a stone or a tree without any concern. Facing such a person, not to mention half an hour, even if it takes 6 months, 5 years, or 20 years, Su Yuan cannot attract them. Unless Su Yuan also becomes a cultivator and stands at the same height as her, there is a possibility of making her fall in love. Unfortunately. Su Yuan shook his head slightly. According to Li Weifeng's instructions, he discovered a unconscious Shangguan girl at the foot of Heishan half a year ago and immediately took her back to the mansion to take care of and cultivate her. If Su Yuan could awaken his memory 6 months earlier, perhaps he would have more choices. But it's already too late to say these things now. Su Yuan still has the last hope. Thinking of this, Su Yuan took out a jade pendant. The quality of the jade pendant is very good, with a faint flow of brilliance inside. The cultivator is certainly superior, but no matter what, that Shangguan girl has been cultivating in the Li mansion for half a year. And it was also saved by Li Weifeng. Therefore, while resigning this time, I also want to repay the kindness of taking care of you during this period. A cultivator who transcends the world and values cause and effect, even if the object of cause and effect is just an ordinary ant. And this jade pendant is the token left by the Shangguan girl. As long as you hold this jade pendant within 2 years and go to a place in the far west, then we can invite Shangguan girl to take action once. Of course, there must be limitations to the one shot here. Although Shangguan Miss wants to repay the cause and effect of the Li family, Su Yuan doesn't think the other party will do anything about it. For example, having a bunch of offspring with Su Yuan Sheng. As soon as this requirement came to mind, the natural talent of danger perception became a crazy warning. Obviously, as long as Su Yuan dares to speak up, even if Shangguan girl doesn't kill him, she will definitely give him an unforgettable lesson. Changfeng, who exactly is that Shangguan girl? Li Weifeng next to him looked at his son with some confusion. Just now when the Shangguan girl gave him the jade pendant, Li Weifeng was about to refuse. Just under the gaze of his own son, he picked up the jade pendant and handed it directly to Su Yuan after seeing off the Shangguan girl. At this moment, Li Weifeng also realized something was wrong. His own son is still aware that he is not very interested in other things, whether in the past or present. But in the conversation with Shangguan girl, she showed an unusual level of enthusiasm. 6 months ago, Dad, where did you find that Shangguan girl? And was there anyone else nearby at that time? Su Yuan did not directly answer Li Weifeng's question, as it concerns the cultivation of immortals. Naturally, the fewer people know, the better. And even if Li Weifeng knew, it wouldn't be of much use. Nearby. Li Weifeng frowned and hesitated, saying, there aren't many people around here. It's just that the black clouds were dense on the Black Mountain that day. The butler said it was because the heavens were angry that I came down early and happened to meet the Shangguan girl. Li Weifeng racked his brains to recall the scene 6 months ago. Black clouds densely cover. God is angry. Su Yuan's expression was thoughtful. If it was in the past, he might think that Li Weifeng had encountered the weather like rainstorm. But upon learning that there was a cultivator named Shangguan girl at the foot of the Black Mountain at that time, things are often not so simple. Perhaps it was not just the weather at that time. Perhaps it is related to those true cultivators who fly to heaven and escape from the earth. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Black Mountain and Inheritance. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Black Mountain and Inheritance. At the foot of the Black Mountain. A girl in a purple dress stood quietly by the boulder, looking up at the winding Black Mountain like a giant dragon. If Su Yuan were present, he would recognize this girl in a purple dress. It was the Shangguan girl who had just left the Li mansion. Montenegro. The girl in the purple dress had an inexplicable expression on her face. She came to this ordinary area because of this Black Mountain. Because Black Mountain is a special place of inheritance. Holding a specific token allows one to enter the interior of Black Mountain and receive inheritance. The purple skirt girl was one of the members who came to receive the inheritance, and in addition to her, dozens of cultivators also came along. These dozens of cultivators are all the proud sons of their respective forces, otherwise they would not be qualified to come here. Unfortunately, only 2 prefecture-level inheritances were obtained this time. As for the core 9 heavenly-level true teachings, they were not meant to be seen. The girl in the purple dress let out a light sigh. The inheritance of Heishan is divided into 4 levels. Heaven, Earth, Mystery, and Yellow. For thousands of years, 90% of the disciples have come to receive inheritance. The inheritance obtained is only at the Yellow and Xian levels. As for the prefecture level, it is very rare. It is extremely rare for the purple skirt girl to obtain a prefecture level inheritance. From the outside world, the inheritance at the prefecture level can definitely make a group of cultivators envious. The sky-level inheritance above the prefecture-level inheritance can only be said to be something that can be encountered but not sought after. Since the opening of Heishan as a place of inheritance, the number of occurrences of heavenly-level inheritance has not exceeded 3. And it is said to be incomplete yet. The reason why the girl in the purple dress fainted at the foot of the Black Mountain, it is because of forcibly accepting the inheritance of the heavenly level that the result is failure, leading to damage to the soul. So I only spent half a year cultivating in the Li mansion, and now I have mostly recovered. For cultivators, physical injuries are nothing, but soul damage is an extremely serious matter. Just as the girl in the purple dress was pondering, a hunched old man appeared out of thin air. "I have met your highness," the hunched old man respectfully said. "Well," the girl in the purple dress casually replied. She disappeared for half a year, which naturally caught the attention of the sect behind her. As soon as it appeared, someone came to find it. "Your Highness, Elder Lu is very worried now. I want you to go back quickly." The hunched old man paused for a moment before continuing. "I understand." The girl in the purple dress nodded slightly, as if she remembered something. Turning his head, he glanced towards the direction of Black Mountain City. "In the past 6 months of recuperation, I have discovered an interesting person." The girl in the purple dress suddenly remembered her conversation with Su Yuan not long ago. She vaguely sensed that the other party seemed to know her identity. "Interesting people." The hunched old man paused slightly. "Your Highness, do you need me to take him over?" the hunched old man inquired. "No need, it's just ordinary." The girl in the purple dress shook her head and didn't think much anymore. What if Su Yuan really knows she's a cultivator? After all, they are ordinary people, and after 100 years and hundreds of years, they will only be a pile of yellow soil. Heishan City, Li Mansion. Su Yuan sat cross-legged, playing with the jade pendant left by the girl in the purple dress. "My heart was constantly flashing with the little things that happened just now, especially every conversation with the girl in the purple dress." Middle Earth. Su Yuan whispered 2 words to himself. During the conversation with the girl in the purple dress, Su Yuan asked where she came from. The answer to this purple dress girl is Middle Earth. Her hometown is a place called Middle Earth. And at this point, it is consistent with the information that Su Yuan has learned in the past few lifetimes. Middle Earth cultivates the immortal realm. For thousands of years, most of the cultivators who have left their traces have come from the Middle Earth immortal cultivation realm. And through this, Su Yuan was even more certain, Shangguan girl is a cultivator from the Middle Earth immortal cultivation realm. However, when Su Yuan continued to inquire about the location of the Zhongtu Xiuxian realm, Shangguan girl shook her head and didn't answer, as if unwilling to answer the question. Upon seeing this, Su Yuan naturally dared not ask any further questions. Now he is just an ordinary person who has just entered the realm of nurture. Naturally, one will not hesitate to provoke an ignorant cultivator. After a moment, Su Yuan breathed a sigh of relief and didn't think much anymore. His primary concern at present is to restore his peak strength in the shortest possible time. Because, according to the half hour spent with the girl in the purple dress just now, it is probably impossible to make the other party voluntarily have children with them. Since voluntary action is not possible, then all that remains is coercion. The prerequisite for coercion is that one has sufficient strength. Su Yuan lowered his head and stared at the jade pendant. With this jade pendant, he was able to see the purple skirt girl again within 2 years. This is Su Yuan's biggest opportunity. 2 years. I only have 2 years. Su Yuan solemnly put away the jade pendant, looking serious. Simply put, Su Yuan needs to recover to full strength within 2 years. Only in this way. It is only then that there is the greatest possibility of leaving the Shangguan girl behind completely and spreading the branches and leaves for Su Yuan. Thinking too much is useless. Su Yuan began to consider the next step of martial arts cultivation. The martial arts of this era have been divided into several generations by Su Yuan, including postnatal, innate, master, and martial saint. Among them, there are 12 realms acquired, 9 realms innate, 6 realms master, and 3 realms martial saint. For 2 years, he crossed the 3 major realms of postnatal, innate, and master, and finally reached the level of martial saint. And he is also the peak martial saint of the 3rd realm. Even though Su Yuan has reincarnated for several generations, it is difficult to achieve it through normal means. It seems that we can only use that method. Su Yuan silently thought to himself. In his 4th life, Su Yuan first entered the realm of martial arts and, while traveling around the world, discovered a secret technique in a ruins. Rather than being a secret technique, it is more like a sorcery that can break the shackles of the human body and almost infinitely devour external essence. Need to know the human body has a limit to the absorption of essence, which is also the level that Su Yuan has reached. The reason why it will still take decades to fully recover its strength. It's just this secret technique, but it breaks this restriction. Of course. Being able to do this is not without cost. That is Su Yuan. Once you start practicing this secret technique, your own longevity element will ignite. Originally, you could live to be 100 years old, but if you practice this secret technique, you can only live to be at most 30 years old, that is to say, it is necessary to pay 70% of the life cost to activate this secret technique. This cost is extremely heavy for anyone, and no warrior would easily attempt it. Even though 70% of Su Yuan is a martial saint, if he practices this secret technique, he probably won't live to be 50 years old. However, after only a moment of contemplation, Su Yuan decided to cultivate this secret technique. For Su Yuan, he has never been like other martial artists who only strive for the present and the day. His goal is to live for centuries and eternity. Strive not for a lifetime, but for eternity. As long as one can plan successfully and become a true cultivator. Not to mention spending 70% of one's lifespan, it's 90%, even sacrificing this life, Su Yuan would not hesitate at all. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. 6 months. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. 6 months. 6 months have passed in the blink of an eye. In the year 639 of the Wuli reign, a large-scale rebel uprising occurred in various states of the Wu dynasty. The rebel forces have transformed into the 18-root army, totaling over 2 million, with a grand momentum, approaching Baiyujing. The Wu dynasty sent an army to suppress it, but was defeated and retreated to the outside of Baiyu capital, Heishan City. Heavy snow is falling, and compared to the continuous fighting in the north, Black Mountain City is located in the south, which is somewhat peaceful. Sha. Su Yuan walked on the snow, and when the snow fell 3 feet around him, it quickly evaporated. Qi and blood rise. Like a furnace. This is precisely the ultimate characteristic of the physical body. In other words, in the realm of martial arts, it is the peak of the 9th innate realm. The current martial arts world has gone through more than 600 years since the founding of Emperor Wu, and is divided into 4 major realms. Acquired, innate, master, and martial saint. Among them, the acquired state and the innate state are respectively to practice essence and qi, in simple terms, to practice body. From the beginning of the Grandmaster realm, it is about refining the God. The pinnacle martial artist of the 9th innate realm, who cultivates his physical body to the extreme, is only one step away from the realm of refining the God Master. Throughout the world, he can be considered a strong person, even in the White Jade capital, he can still rank high. As for the Master of refining gods, if there are still so many martial artists in the world with 9 innate realms, so there are only a few masters who have started refining their gods. Especially the great masters above the 4 realms are rare, with an estimated total of no more than 20 for over 600 years. Whether it is the acquired realm or the innate realm, it's all about physical cultivation. Visible and tangible, with traces to follow. But to cultivate a God, the first step is to understand what a God is and perceive its existence. Just this point alone, it stopped the peak martial artist in the 9 realms of the 9 heavenly realms. After all, the existence of God is too elusive. If it weren't for Wu Zubu's domination of the world back then, I'm afraid people nowadays don't know exactly how to follow the path of the Master. Of course, the so-called threshold for refining gods, for Su Yuan, nature is like air. At the moment when he entered the 9th realm of the innate world, he had already begun to refine his spirit. At most half a day, you can complete the preliminary refinement and enter the realm of the master. My current strength is no longer comparable to that of an ordinary grandmaster. Once I completely step into the grandmaster realm, apart from the martial saint, no one should be able to pose a threat to me. Su Yuan thought to himself. The struggle between masters is essentially a confrontation between gods. Although Su Yuan has not yet become a master, he has already begun to refine his spirit and can to a certain extent stimulate his own spirit. In this case, coupled with the experience and accumulation of the Su Yuan era, capable of crushing the four realms and the masters below. After all, the paths taken by the current martial artists were all paved by the fifth emperor of the Soviet Union. How could their understanding and application of gods be comparable to Su Yuan himself? At this moment. Su Yuan's gaze twitched slightly, and his own qi and blood quickly converged. The heavy snow, which had rapidly evaporated 3 feet away, fell one after another. After a moment, the maid Almond walked briskly into the courtyard. Young master, you are in good health. How can you go outside to soak in the snow? Almond saw Su Yuan letting the snowflakes fall on him and quickly stepped forward to hold up the paper umbrella. It's okay. Su Yuan shook his head and said, the room is too stuffy. Come out and relax. That can't be like that, a man muttered softly. The young master's health has improved, but she is truly happy. Nature doesn't want Su Yuan's body to have any further problems. Return to the house. Almond began preparing meals for Su Yuan. Young master, you must be careful during this period. Many adults' mansions in the city have been stolen. Almond was doing what he was doing while chatting about the recent events in Heishan City. I heard that Lord Fuzuan's family has lost a 500-year-old ginseng, which has been passed down from generation to generation and saved for life. Someone once offered 100,000 taels of silver, but Lord Fuzuan was unwilling to sell it. Now it has been stolen suddenly. Lord Fuzuan's face was so funny at that time. Almond gloated and said. Although the Li family is a famous wealthy businessman in Heishan City, it is naturally incomparable to the Lord Fuzuan who is in charge of a city. Normally, even the old master Li Weifeng would bow his head when he saw the lord of the mansion. Now, seeing such a big shot makes him feel exhausted. A natural and joyful mood. Is that so? Su Yuan casually replied. Speaking of it. In recent months, several prominent figures in Heishan City have had their homes stolen, but it is related to Su Yuan. Or rather, it was done by Su Yuan. There's no way, even if Su Yuan cultivates that magic that can break the shackles of the human body. Able to devour external essence without restriction. But there must also be essence that can be consumed. Where does the essence come from? It's nothing more than some precious ancient medicines. For example, the 500-year-old ginseng in the Fuzuan family mentioned by Amon. These ancient medicines are priceless, even with the financial resources of the Li family. They may not necessarily be able to be taken out. Even if they can afford it, it is estimated that they will have to sell their property, which will hurt their muscles and bones. Su Yuan didn't want to make such a big fuss, so he could only focus on the wealthy people in the city. Although Heishan City is not a state city, it is also quite prosperous due to its backing from Heishan. Some of the old masters in the city do have many things that Su Yuan currently needs. Of course, Su Yuan did not completely focus on any particular family, but instead used the resources he needed for cultivation. The average score was in the homes of dozens of masters in Heishan City. This is also how Su Yuan was able to, in just 6 months without relying on the many backers left by previous generations, the reason for transitioning from being a beginner in the heavenly realm to being almost a master. Next, after sending Ah Man away, Su Yuan sat cross-legged. You can now practice the Divine Mind secret technique. Su Yuan's expression was calm, and he silently thought in his heart. Breaking through the master is imminent, so one naturally needs to be prepared. The essence of a master is to refine the divine, to condense the divine will that belongs to oneself. A series of divine secret techniques derived from this foundation of divine will. If it is a fight between ordinary warriors that requires the use of fist and foot strength. So how does the secret law of divine will operate its own God, unleashing even more incredible power at once? Let's start with the heavenly eye secret technique. Su Yuan pondered for a moment and made a decision in his heart. Tianyan secret technique is a divine secret technique created during the 4th generation of Su Yuan. If we say that among all the ages, the 8th generation was the strongest in Su Yuan's attack, so the 4th generation was the one with the heaviest killing power of Su Yuan. In the 4th generation, Su Yuan was reincarnated to the Renxian Temple. The human immortal temple is a power that has been passed down for nearly 1,000 years. In the 3rd reign of the Su Yuan dynasty, it had already begun to decline. So, after Su Yuan's planning, successfully reincarnated as a disciple of the adult immortal temple in the 4th generation. The subsequent development has been very smooth. Su Yuan easily became the leader of the immortal temple of that generation. Afterwards, with the help of a large number of ancient books and books collected by the human immortal temple, Su Yuan finally came into contact with the gods and glimpsed the level of a master. Just at the moment when Su Yuan explored the realm of masters and condensed the divine will that belonged exclusively to the masters. But there was a mistake and I was forced to go crazy. In a state of madness, Su Yuan was confused and forgot everything, leaving only a childlike heart. And the obsession of pursuing the ultimate martial arts. In this state, Su Yuan no longer planned his layout, but walked the world with a completely new attitude. Kill those who are not satisfied, kill those who are interested, and kill those who are against my will. It can be said that during the period of over 100 years during the reign of the 4th emperor, the entire world became the slaughterhouse of Su Yuan. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Rebels leaving south. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Rebels leaving south. The bits and pieces about the 4th age kept coming to Su Yuan's mind. The path of martial arts is not always smooth, especially for pioneers like Su Yuan. Grandmasters need to refine their gods in order to condense their own divine intentions, but refining gods is not just talk. When it comes to fields beyond the physical body, such as the spirit and even the soul, a slight mistake can lead to falling into an abyss. For example, in the 4th generation who went crazy and lost his mind, what is the difference between an ordinary person and death? That is to say, Su Yuan, with his ability to reincarnate, forcefully erased many negative impacts from his previous life. Of course, misfortune and fortune depend on it. It is precisely by relying on the state of being possessed by exorcism that one's body has nothing else and one's heart is like a child. Su Yuan Kai was able to grasp the various details of the 2 great realms of Grandmaster and Martial Saint in just 100 years. Only then can he stand at the peak of the Martial Saint in the 5th generation, open up the Martial dynasty, and become the martial ancestor worshipped by warriors from all over the world. Amidst the ups and downs of his thoughts, Su Yuan breathed a sigh of relief. The heavenly eye secret technique is not an attack secret technique, but an auxiliary secret technique, or in other words, a life-saving secret technique. Observing the gods of the world through one's own gods, is the essence of the secret technique of the heavenly eye. God is the spirit and soul, and all living beings in the world have their own gods. For generations, Su Yuan has attached great importance to this secret technique. After all, the means of saving his life are naturally the most important until he recovers to his peak strength. With the secret technique of the heavenly eye, Su Yuan was fully able to anticipate the enemy's advance and detect the position of other strong players in advance. The stronger the strength, the more prominent one's own god will naturally be. With these, Su Yuan can know what level of strength there are around him. Tianyan, open up. Su Yuan sat cross-legged, with strands of divine intent converging in his forehead and ancestral orifice, constantly entangled and colliding. Finally, an invisible thin thread spread down from the center of the eyebrow, slowly opening like a celestial eye. In a thunderous moment, Su Yuan seemed to have entered a pitch-black space. Dots of light spread all around, ranging in size from the size of a thumb to the size of a stone plate. These light dots naturally represent nearby creatures, and their size is linked to their strength. There are over 20 martial artists from the innate realm in Heishan City, and the strongest one is the 6th realm of the innate realm. Su Yuan glanced over and thought to himself. There are 9 innate realms, and a martial artist who can cultivate to the 6th realm can already be considered a strong one. At least there are no opponents in the Black Mountain City. At this moment, Su Yuan frowned and looked in one direction. That's it. Su Yuan carefully observed and found a large number of light spots converging hundreds of miles away from the direction he was looking at. In theory, the Heavenly Eye secret technique can observe at most the gods, within a range of 5 miles around the body, and even further away, it may not be able to catch them. But at this moment, Su Yuan's perception of the direction gathered at least hundreds of thousands of light points, including even martial artists from the innate realm. Hundreds of thousands of light points converge, and even if separated by hundreds of miles, Su Yuan can still sense some. Just like stars beyond the sky, separated by billions of miles, they are still noticed by ordinary people due to their vastness and vastness. Hundreds of thousands of people gathering. Is it a large army? Su Yuan pondered in his heart. Now that the Wu dynasty is busy resisting the rebellion in the north, there is naturally no spare force to send hundreds of thousands of troops to the south. Has the rebel army gone south? Su Yuan's expression was thoughtful. As expected. A few days later. Black Mountain City is in chaos. The rebels have come to kill. Countless people in the Black Mountain City were panicked, and the whereabouts of hundreds of thousands of soldiers and horses could not be kept hidden. Soon, it spread to the Black Mountain City. Even those nobles and nobles have weak legs, rebels. This is the rebel army. In the north, many rebels have carried out massacres. If it weren't for the hundreds of thousands of rebels stopping 30 miles away and not taking any further action, it would be possible that the Black Mountain City had already experienced a large-scale evacuation. Even so, many powerful individuals are secretly preparing to retreat. For a moment, the people of Heishan City were in a state of panic. The Li Mansion was also in chaos, and the maids and guards were talking in panic. Why did the rebels come to our place? Didn't the 18 root rebels all deal with Baiyujing? Yeah, Baiyujing is so wealthy. Isn't it enough for the rebels to attack Baiyujing? What are you doing in our Heishan City? I heard there are 300,000 rebels stationed 50 miles away. 300,000, my goodness. What did the master say? I don't know. Early this morning, the master went to the mansion to discuss countermeasures with important figures such as the mansion. The maids chatted quickly, as people from the Li family, even if it's just a servant, it's always better than those ordinary people outside. If something unstoppable happens, the Li family should not ignore them. Young master, young master. Rebels, the rebels are here. The maid Aman ran into the courtyard panting heavily, wanting to inform her young master of this news in a timely manner. Where's the young master? Aman walked around the house and found that Su Yuan was not here at all. At the same time, Su Yuan quietly left the Black Mountain City. I want to see which faction is standing behind these rebels. Su Yuan thought to himself. As early as half a year ago, Su Yuan had faintly detected the rebel forces in various states that had caused the riots, with another pusher behind them. After all, these rebels appeared at a time that was too consistent, and they did not lack a master-level combat power, otherwise, it would be impossible to repeatedly repel the suppression of the Wu dynasty. To this extent, only those few forces are possible. However, Su Yuan had just awakened his memory and did not have the ability to protect himself. I ignored it. Now Su Yuan has already entered the realm of the Grandmaster, and there is also a rebel army that has taken the initiative to send him in front of him. I naturally want to see who the mastermind behind the scenes is. Soon. Su Yuan arrived 20 miles away from Heishan City. Here. Su Yuan opened his heavenly eyes and saw thousands of light dots emerging not far away. 2 of them are shining brightly. 2 great masters. Su Yuan stopped and found a brightly lit estate in the distance. Besides that, luxury carriages drove by and stopped at the entrance of the estate. Chief Zhao, please come in. The general is waiting for you inside. Captain Qian, if you can come, the general will definitely be very happy. Mr. Liu, why don't you come in too? Mr. Chen, please. One after another, powerful figures from Black Mountain City entered the estate. Su Yuan stood in the shadow, gazing from afar at the manor where people kept coming and going. It turned out to be a secret conversation. Su Yuan's thoughts were spinning. Obviously, 300,000 rebels were stationed 50 miles away from Black Mountain City and did not attack immediately. I just want to have a secret conversation with the powerful figures in Black Mountain City. It may be due to courtesy before the enemy, or it may be due to concerns about the significant losses of a strong attack. After all, if Black Mountain City is defended, a 300,000 strong army will be considered to have broken through the city gate. There must also be some damage. Su Yuan's gaze suddenly changed. I saw several more carriages coming and 7 or 8 figures coming down from above. One of them is Li Weifeng. Father is also here. Su Yuan was not surprised, although Li Weifeng did not embark on an official career, but as the owner of the Li Family Chamber of Commerce, he also holds a considerable position in Heishan City, characters who can rank in the top 100. Su Yuan walked in while thinking. There are rebels guarding outside the estate, verifying the identity of each person, but when Su Yuan walked in, the guards didn't notice him, as if subconsciously ignoring it. The master has already begun to refine the spirit, delving into the spiritual realm of both mystery and mystery, using the power of divine will to deceive some ordinary people. Nature is effortless, and ordinary masters can achieve this, not to mention Su Yuan, who has been the peak martial saint for several generations. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Intent. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Intent. Su Yuan walked into the manor. At regular intervals, there are dedicated people leading the way ahead. In no time, Su Yuan came to a large hall. There were already hundreds of people sitting in the hall. At first glance, all of them were from the powerful mansion of Heishan City. Of course, there were also influential elders who did not personally attend. Instead, they sent their trusted subordinates over. This rebel army should be the Jing army from the northern 18 root rebels. It's strange that this Jing army doesn't join the other 17 root rebels in entering Baiyujing. What are they doing south? No matter what the purpose is, at least not immediately attacking the city indicates that there is some discussion. Some talk. I hope so. I heard that the reputation of the Jing army in the north is not very good. The people in the hall were whispering. Li Weifeng also sat there, frowning and observing the surroundings. Brother Wang, what does the lord of the mansion mean by ordering us and a few others to come in person? A chubby man said in a low voice. They are all the owners of the Black Mountain City Chamber of Commerce. They have a secret conversation with the rebels and just leave it to their confidants. There is no need to personally take risks. Lord Fuzuan should have considered it. The other person shook their head. Fuzuan is using us as bait to lure the rebels, said the third person with a gloomy expression. Li Weifeng sat next to him without speaking. He also has this feeling, but who can refuse the orders of the prefect? After Su Yuan entered the hall, he casually found a corner and sat down. Occasionally, a maid came over carrying fine wine. Just whether it's the others or the maids. I didn't even take a closer look at Su Yuan, as if there was no one in that position. Has a master left? Su Yuan opened his heavenly eyes and found one of the two masters in the manor, whose breath quickly dissipated. Half a pillar of incense. Everyone basically sat down. Amidst the crowds of armored generals, a tall man with a straight waist walked into the hall. Seeing this big man, everyone in the hall quieted down. The person in front of me is General Jing, the leader of 300,000 rebel forces who once ravaged the north, and even the Wu dynasty could do nothing about it. It is said that the Jing family is a small family in the northern part of Yuanzhou. In the past decade, it is unknown what has happened and their power has greatly increased. This time, there is a great chaos in the world, and rebels have risen in all the northern states. The Jing family also took the opportunity to rebel. Among the 18 root rebels, although the Jing army may not be the strongest, it is not the weakest. Ladies and gentlemen, Emperor Wu was incompetent, and our Jing family had no choice but to rebel. Over the years, we have suffered heavy losses in our battles with the army of the Wu dynasty. I don't mind, but our brothers in the army have small families. If they die, we must come up with compensation. De Han glanced at the scene and said with emotion, Jing knows that Heishan City is a wealthy city in Qingzhou. This time, he just wants to ask everyone to borrow some money as military pay. As soon as De Han said this, everyone on the stage was not surprised. Jing Jun did not immediately attack the city, but instead had a secret conversation with them, which must have been a request. Seeking wealth is also expected by everyone. After all, it would be worth investing some money to avoid rebel attacks on the city. I just don't know how much appetite General Jing has. It seems that everyone doesn't welcome Mr. Jing. The big man sighed when he saw no one responding and looked at a man sitting in the front row. The man, with two beards, sat among the people of Heishan City. At this moment, he noticed the gaze of the big man and immediately stood up. The general fought against the Wu dynasty for the people of the world, and our Lu family truly admires him and is willing to donate 500,000 taels. The man with two beards spoke loudly. Mr. Lu, in the future, your Lu family's affairs will be my Jing's affairs. A smile appeared on the big man's face and he spoke up. The other people in the hall suddenly changed their expressions. Mr. Lu, like Li Weifeng, are both wealthy merchants from the Black Mountain City. However, in terms of industrial scale, the Lu family does not even have 1/10 of the Li family. Even the Lu family took out 500,000 taels of silver, so isn't the Li family earning 5 million taels of silver? Isn't the money that the masters above the Li family have given out calculated in tens of millions of taels? This is no longer borrowing money, but openly robbing. The big man ignored the ugly crowd and instead looked at another person. Zhao clan chief, I wonder how much silver are you willing to lend to Jing? Han Wen said. General, our Zhao family is not comparable to the Lu family, we can only produce. Zhao clan leader hesitated for a moment before finally gritting his teeth and saying, 100,000 taels of silver, this is already the limit of our Zhao family. No matter how much, we will have to sell our property 100,000 taels. Who are you sending? The Han's tone was cold and he said, playing such a trick on Jing, it's time to kill him. The next moment, several soldiers walked in and pulled the Zhao clan leader out. In no time, there was a scream coming from outside, and then it disappeared. Jing has already said that my brothers have been fighting with me for years, hoping for some money. If you don't give me money, how can I explain it to my brothers? If I can't explain it, I'll die. The big man's gaze was sharp as he looked around the hall and walked slowly. If the general thinks it's too little, he can say it out loud. Why leave so much room? A middle-aged man sitting nearby suddenly spoke up. Just one Lu family, the general wants 500,000 taels of silver. With such a huge appetite, the general doesn't have to worry about overeating. Another person sarcastically said. Su Yuan sat in the corner and glanced at the two people talking. These two people, one is the butler of the mansion, standing behind the Black Mountain City mansion, and the other is from the Lin family. Lin family. It is a famous family in Heishan City and even the entire Qingzhou. Its origin can probably be traced back to the previous dynasty over 600 years ago. Although the main branch of the Lin family has already moved to the state capital, the Lin family that remains in Heishan City is just a branch of it. But his position in Heishan City is still unshakable, and after taking office, all previous officials will first visit the Lin family. Fu Zun and the Lin family, that is the true existence in charge of Black Mountain City. The big man looked at the two people speaking and knew the power behind them. He smiled and said, "Jing has just arrived. This is indeed a bit excessive." In this way, Fu Zun and the Lin family only need to lend Jing 20 million taels each. 20 million taels. The Lin family laughed angrily. The butler in the mansion also looks very unattractive. This is 20 million taels of silver. What is the annual tax rate for Heishan City? General Jing is so confident that he can take us. The tone of the butler in the mansion is not good. In terms of strength, Black Mountain City really can't stop a 300,000 strong army. But it is not an easy task for the rebels to easily capture Black Mountain City. At least guarding the city gate can fully sustain for 1 or 2 months. Who knows what will happen after such a long time? And this secret conversation is also a plan between the government officials and the Lin family. Oh. It seems that you still have a reliance. The big man clapped his hands. Suddenly, 2 figures were thrown in. Fu Zun. Master. The magistrate and the Lin family suddenly changed their expressions. The 2 people who were thrown into the hall were dressed in luxurious clothes, but their faces were as pale as ashes. He is the head of the mansion in Heishan City and the head of the Lin family branch. Master, are you not with the lord of the mansion? The Lin family seemed to realize something and suddenly stopped. No matter what plans Fu Zun and the head of the Lin family have, now that it has fallen into the hands of Jing Jun, obviously failed. Losing in the hands of the master is not unfair. Heishan City Mansion looked at the Great Han with a deep voice. The Lin family next to him took the initiative to move their lips and didn't say anything. He planned with the Lord of Heishan City to lure General Jing out of the army with some powerful officials as bait. Then the 2 of them secretly led their troops to capture General Jing. As long as General Jing, the rebel leader, falls into their hands, the 300,000 strong army will naturally break free. However, neither of them expected that they had just taken someone out of Black Mountain City when their master caught them. Grandmaster. Surprisingly, there is a master sitting in Jingjun. This was something that both the lord of the mansion and the lord of the Lin family had not anticipated even if they wanted to break their heads. If the top few rebels in the 18-root rebellion have their masters stationed, it is still possible. But Jing Jun is only in the middle rank. How can we make strong masters loyal? The head of the Lin family looked at the figure in the grey robe that had returned to the back of the big Han, and a hint of fear still flashed in his eyes. The 2 adults came uninvited, and Jing naturally welcomed them. General Jing of the Great Han smiled slightly. What did I say just now? Fu Zun and the Lin family each offer 20 million taels. How are you considering it? General Jing's gaze turned slightly, looking towards the butler of the mansion and the person from the Lin family. Since the general has spoken, I will offer you nothing but money. The butler of Fu Zun and the Lin family looked at the disheveled Fu Zun and the head of the family, and could only agree. There's no way, the life of our own master is all in the blink of an eye, General Jing. At such times, let alone 20 million taels, even if there are more, they can only recognize by pinching their noses. As Fu Zun spoke with the Lin family, the other high-ranking officials in Heishan City in the hall also realized something and stood up to speak. My Zhao family is willing to pay 800,000 taels. My Qian family is willing to contribute 1 million taels. Each family offered a price of 500,000 taels in proportion to the first Lu family, enduring heartache. Even Fu Zun and the Lin family have softened, not to mention them. General Jing smiled and looked at everyone, but his eyes were cold. Jing Jun does indeed have a great master in charge, and there is not just one, but two. Two great masters, combined with a force of 300,000, easily captured Black Mountain City. But General Jing thought more, and if he really breaks through Black Mountain City, it will inevitably cause chaos. At that time, the wealthy and powerful families will definitely divide their money into multiple parts, or secretly let servants take it away, or hide it in a certain cellar. This will require spending a lot of time searching, and not all of it may end up in one's own hands. The most important thing is, Heishan City is not the true goal of General Jing, and it is impossible to spend too much time on it. Instead of that, it's not about forcing these nobles to take the initiative to send them up, but rather it's more cost-effective than attacking the city. Without contributing any effort, one can actually obtain a large amount of money. My Li family is willing to donate 5 million taels to help the general fight invincibly, Li Weifeng said in a tall voice. The Li Family Chamber of Commerce is one of the 3 major chambers of commerce in Heishan City. Presently, you have opened warehouses multiple times to provide disaster relief. Your family's food supply is so abundant that you cannot finish it, so you can only distribute it to the disaster victims outside. I think 5 million taels is still too little for President Li. 8 million taels, right? General Jing smiled slightly and said. This statement came out. Li Weifeng's expression changed greatly. The Li Family Chamber of Commerce is indeed one of the 3 major chambers of commerce in Heishan City, capable of managing so many industries and consuming an astonishing amount of 5 million taels per day, which is already the money that Li Weifeng can only make by selling 1/3 of his property. As for 8 million taels, I'm afraid we'll have to mortgage the Li mansion to make up for it. General, my Li family really doesn't have that much money. Li Weifeng quickly said. What's going on? President Li, are you also planning to tease Mr. Jing like the Zhao family? General Jing frowned slightly and looked coldly at Li Weifeng. No, I dare not. Li Weifeng thought of the Zhao family leader who had just been dragged out and killed, and said with great frustration. Fu Zun. Li Weifeng looked towards the nearby Black Mountain City lord. He personally came at the command of the magistrate, and now being so forced by the rebels, he naturally wanted to seek help from the other party. Just the lord of Heishan City shook his head, without any intention of standing out. How could he possibly speak for Li Weifeng now that he himself is in danger? Say it again. Even if he really said it, General Jing would have to listen. Upon seeing this, Li Weifeng immediately understood the meaning of Fu Zun. Chaos, this is chaos. Li Weifeng sighed and said that in a chaotic world, having a big fist is the rule. Now that the rebels are carrying their masters and hundreds of thousands of troops, who dares not comply with the entire Black Mountain City? Just thinking about the achievements of the Li family's generations of management, we must all blame the rebels, and we cannot help but feel a sense of tragedy in our hearts. Suddenly, a figure stopped next to Li Weifeng. This person. Li Weifeng was stunned for a moment. Feeling very familiar with the figure, he looked up. Changfeng, why did you come here? After seeing his figure and face clearly, Li Weifeng was immediately shocked. Isn't my son currently at the mansion? Why did you come to the manor where you had a secret conversation with the rebels? Changfeng, sit down quickly, don't stand, don't attract the general's attention. Li Weifeng thought Su Yuan had sneaked in and immediately asked him to sit behind him. Without permission from the rebels, sneak into the estate. If this were discovered, Su Yuan might also be dragged out and killed. What can't the rebels do now to establish their authority? It's okay. Su Yuan comforted Li Weifeng with a sentence, go straight ahead and look at the big man sitting on the high platform, saying. General Jing, I'm a bit curious. Who is standing behind your Jing army? A small family that has gathered hundreds of thousands of troops in just a few years, with 2 grandmasters in charge. Who has gained their support? Su Yuan's tone was calm, without any hesitation from the 300,000 rebel leader. Is it the Divine Sword Villa, the Golden Wolf King's Court, the Little West Heaven Temple, or the 10,000 Gully Snake Valley? The needles falling in the hall were audible, and everyone stared at Su Yuan in amazement. Is the young man in front of me crazy? How dare I ask General Jing with such language and temperament? Haven't you seen even Lord Fu and Lord Lin sitting there with their heads down honestly? Are you? General Jing has not spoken yet. Just now, alone, the Lin family leader and the Black Mountain City Lord were arrested. The figure in the grey robe who had been standing behind him seemed to have noticed something, and a vortex of divine intent appeared in his eyes. His gaze toward Su Yuan was filled with a hint of shock. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Like Gods and Demons. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Like Gods and Demons. The figure in the grey robe was one of the 2 masters sitting in the Jingjun, and at this moment his gaze was fixed on Su Yuan with solemnity. The master has already condensed his divine intention, and a single glance can make the martial artist in the 9th realm collapse in his mind. Of course, there are limitations to the use of this divine intention method, which is only effective within 10 meters of the body and is a form of self-consumption. Even so, it is extremely terrifying. If a great master is placed on the battlefield, it is a great weapon. Just now, Master Grey Robe saw Su Yuan questioning General Jing in person and used his own divine will to oppress him. I want Su Yuan to kneel down on the spot. However, to the surprise of Master Grey Robe, his divine intention disappeared completely when he came into contact with Su Yuan. Master Grey Robe carefully glanced at Su Yuan. There are only a few ways to block the attack of the Master's divine will. One reason is that Su Yuan himself is a great master, so he can easily resist the temptation of other masters. The second reason is that Su Yuan had a divine intention treasure on his body, which barely blocked it. The divine intention treasure is a master who has been nurturing an external object with his own divine intention for many years, resulting in this external object having some special effects. These are called divine treasures. Master Grey Robe first denied the first possibility, and Su Yuan was at least 20 years old. How could it be a master? Little friend, Master Grey Robe suddenly spoke up, I don't know where he comes from. Excluding the first possibility, so the only explanation left is the divine will treasure. And the divine will treasures are mostly from those few transcendent powers. Su Yuan possesses the treasure of divine intention, perhaps it comes from there. Therefore, Master Grey Robe needs to confirm Su Yuan's background. Being able to cultivate to a master, Master Grey Robe is naturally not foolish. I won't do things to the end. Little friend. General Jing next to him immediately realized that Su Yuan was not simple. Being able to have the great master address you as a little friend, even fools know that the other party may have a backing they cannot afford. For a moment, everyone looked at Su Yuan in disbelief. Faced with everyone's gaze, Su Yuan shook his head and said, Black Mountain City. Upon hearing these words, Master Grey Robe furrowed his brow slightly. He doesn't remember the influence of any masters sitting near Black Mountain City. There are no great masters living in seclusion here. Otherwise, Jing Jun would not have placed his target here. Is it difficult? I overthought it. Is the other party just lucky? Did they pick up a divine intention treasure and put it on their body? Master Grey Robe breathed a slight sigh of relief. Although it is extremely unbelievable to have found a divine intention treasure, it seems that there is only this possibility at the moment. Think of this. The Grey Robe Master's gaze immediately became cold. His great master, surprisingly, I was scared by a boy who didn't know the world and was still under the gaze of so many people. The treasure of divine will is precious, but it cannot deal with a true master. And there are also many restrictions on the use of divine will treasures. Even a warrior under a master cannot fully unleash the power of a divine treasure. Don't worry. Master Grey Robe casually spoke to General Jing next to him. This immediately made General Jing realize that the Grey Robe Master should have confirmed the identity of the other party. I don't have much background. There isn't much support either. Someone. Drag it out. General Jing is too lazy to talk nonsense, although he doesn't know how Su Yuan actually entered this manner. But surprisingly, even the Grey Robe Master spoke up, so naturally there was no concern. The words have just finished. The digital guard, who showed his intelligence, stepped forward and prepared to push Su Yuan out. Changfeng. Li Weifeng's face turned pale, but he still stood up in front of Su Yuan and begged General Jing for mercy, saying, "My son doesn't know the etiquette. I beg General to be lenient. I am willing to offer an additional 3 million taels of silver." General Jing didn't even lift his eyelids, obviously he couldn't see the 3 million taels of silver. The other high-ranking officials in Heishan City watched coldly. Anyway, it wasn't their son who was killed. Even their son, facing the enraged General Jing, who dares to stop? Who can stop it? Just as Li Weifeng was full of despair, Su Yuan stood still and gently pressed on Li Weifeng's shoulder. Buzz. A subtle wave dissipated. The guards who surrounded felt their vision blurred, their ears roared, and with a thud, they lay on the ground without any resistance. What's going on? General Jing, the Heishan City Lord below, and the Lin family leader sitting on a high seat immediately noticed the situation on the scene and their pupils narrowed. Divine intent. Upon seeing this, Master Grey Robe suddenly looked up, looking at Su Yuan like a sharp sword. The Master's divine intention is to kill invisibly. Just now, with Su Yuan as the center, the divine will was surging in all directions. Ordinary people may not have noticed. But the Grey Robe Master felt it incredibly clear. It was precisely because of this that Master Grey Robe felt incredulous in his heart. Even if Su Yuan possesses a treasure of divine intent, that divine intention treasure is not something that can be triggered just by desire. Moreover, the Grey Robe Grandmaster noticed that Su Yuan was able to control the divine intention with ease, which was clearly beyond the rigid comparison of the divine intention treasure. Only masters who have truly experienced alchemy can lift heavy weights like this. Just how old is Su Yuan? How could he possibly be a master? Forget it, you won't be honest in answering this question. Su Yuan's eyes were calm, ignoring the shock of others. But he extended his right hand and slowly pressed it towards the Grey Robe Master on the high platform. In an instant, strands of divine intent emerged, constantly intertwined. A palm that is 5 meters in size quickly takes shape. Master Grey Robe is about to take action. I saw a palm that was completely condensed by divine intent quickly forming. What is this? Master Grey Robe's face suddenly changed drastically. Human Immortal Big Handprint. This is the Human Immortal Big Handprint of the Human Immortal Temple. The Grey Robe Grandmaster's heart stirred up turbulent waves. The 3 words, Shangguan, are very unfamiliar to the vast majority of ordinary people. But with the status of the Grey Robe Master, I naturally know much more than ordinary people. It is well known that 600 years ago, Emperor Wuzu dominated the world and opened up the martial arts world. He was the first great master and martial saint in history. But before Wuzu, an unprecedented demon had emerged. That is the leader of the Renxian Temple generation. 700 years ago, that great demon slaughtered the world and caused a catastrophe that frightened countless strong people. If it weren't for Wuzu's sudden emergence, opening up the Wu dynasty, and restoring the martial arts world, I'm afraid there aren't many warriors in the world today. Because the martial artists with some strength were all killed by that big demon 700 years ago. The Human Immortal Temple. Is he the master of the Human Immortal Temple? Master Grey Robe has a tingling scalp. The Great Hand Seal of Human Immortal is one of the 9 inherited divine secrets of the Human Immortal Temple, and it is also a legacy left by the great demon who slaughtered the world 700 years ago. Belongs to the secret that is not passed down. Since Su Yuan knew this divine secret technique, it must have come from the Human Immortal Temple. And with his master's strength, his position within the Human Immortal Temple is definitely very high. Just as Master Grey Robe's thoughts suddenly turned, his divine palm was completely formed, and an invisible pressure swept across the field. "Little friend, have something to say." Master Grey Robe quickly spoke up. Realizing that Su Yuan was related to the concept of human immortality, Master Grey Robe immediately prepared to surrender. General Jing and several deputy generals who were not far away were already frightened and collapsed to the ground. His grandmasters mean something that ordinary people can resist. Besides, Su Yuan is not an ordinary master yet. No need. Su Yuan is too lazy to talk nonsense. Since we have taken action, there is no reason to stop. Boom. God's palm fell, and the entire high platform began to collapse. Shangguan. Master Grey Robe saw that Su Yuan had no intention of keeping his hand, and a hint of malice flashed in his eyes. What about the master of the Human Immortal Temple? If you want to kill him, you have to show your true abilities. Master Grey Robe is able to cultivate to the level of a master, naturally feeling proud. It is impossible to be intimidated by the name of Renxian Temple. Besides, he fluctuates according to divine will. It is inferred that Su Yuan has just completed the refining of gods and belongs to the new master. The Grand Master has 6 realms, and above the 4 realms, he is called the Great Grand Master. A newly emerged master who is still in the first realm, even if he comes from the Human Immortal Temple. How strong can it be? How much understanding can one have of the divine secret techniques at the level of Human Immortal Hand Prince? At the next moment, the divine palm fell. Bang! A figure suddenly retreated. The grey-robed master, covered in blood, struggled to stabilize his figure and stumbled 10 meters away. Why so strong? Master Grey Robe suddenly spat out blood, unable to understand. He looked at Su Yuan standing still in his place. With just one strike, the Grey-Robe Grandmaster was severely injured. Don't look at him standing still. In fact, the Grey-Robe Grandmaster can only do standing at the moment. All the meridians in the body have been broken, and 90% of one's own divine intention has collapsed. Now even taking one step is extremely difficult. Master Grey Robe vaguely felt that Su Yuan had already left his hand behind. If he really had a killing intent, he should have died just now under the hand print of that Taoist immortal. How could it be? How could it be? Master Grey Robe exclaimed in his heart. It was truly the incredible strength of the Human Immortal Hand seal in Su Yuan's hand. The Human Immortal Big Handprint is indeed a rare divine secret technique, but it is also impossible for a novice martial artist to achieve the same level of crushing. Master Grey Robe didn't know that the so-called Human Immortal Big Handprint was originally a divine secret technique left by Su Yuan 700 years ago. In terms of understanding and insight into this divine secret technique, even if the masters of the Human Immortal Temple add up, it is estimated that they do not even have 1% of Su Yuan's. That's precisely why this divine secret technique has such power in Su Yuan's hands. This is like a sharp blade, placed in the hands of an ordinary person, and the damage caused by it is completely different from that of an assassin who is proficient in the blade. Is this Changfeng? Li Weifeng was completely stunned, staring blankly at the scene before him. Only a few moments had passed since Su Yuan approached General Jing to inquire and Xin Yi's palm fell. But within this short period of time, everything that happened on the field almost made Li Weifeng think he had hallucinations. My own son was like a demon, almost slapping the grey-robed grandmaster who was highly valued by General Jing to death. Just as everyone in the hall was stunned. Whoosh! A figure hiding in the dark suddenly erupted and ran wildly towards the outside of the hall. This figure is the second great master sitting in the Jingjun army. After witnessing Su Yuan's terrifying methods with his own eyes, this master never even had the idea of resisting. Are you joking? Master Grey Robe has comparable strength to him, but he hasn't even managed to withstand a palm in front of Su Yuan. What if he goes up? It's probably just a matter of one palm. Don't run away at this time. Stay here to die. As for Master Grey Robe and General Jing, where is their own destiny important? Brother Yan, Master Grey Robe's lips moved as he looked at the figure fleeing towards the outside of the hall, feeling bitter in his heart. He didn't blame the other party, but if he were himself, it would probably be the same choice. The strength that Su Yuan gang has just shown is really terrifying. Even if he is as strong as a master, he feels hopeless. Can we escape? Su Yuan scanned his eyes and a stream of divine intent emerged, crossing a distance of tens of meters. Stop. Invisible constraints descend. The fleeing master surnamed Yen suddenly paused and his speed came to a sudden halt. What divine secret technique is this? Master Yen, with a tingling scalp, used the power of divine will to turn a master into a prison. This method may only be achieved by great masters above the four realms. Come back. It was as if an invisible hand lifted Master Yen and threw him towards the direction of the hall. The master surnamed Yen rolled on the ground a few times before stopping. Please spare your life, senior. Please spare my life. After calming down, Master Yen did not hesitate to beg for mercy from Su Yuan. With just one palm, the Grey Robe Grandmaster was severely injured and about to die, and then easily made himself unable to move. This kind of strength is at least at the level of a great Grandmaster above the four realms. Grandmaster is divided into 6 realms, 1 realm and 1 heavenly realm. 9 out of 10 Grandmasters spend their entire lives wandering in the first realm. The great masters above the 4 realms have been born since the founding of the Wu dynasty by Emperor Wu. Over the past 600 years, many ordinary masters have emerged. But there are no more than 20 great masters in the 4 realms. Such a strong person, if in an era without a martial saint, looking at the world, one can rank in the top 3 or even first. Please spare my life, senior. Grandmaster Yen lowered his posture very low, although such a plea for mercy did not match his status as a grandmaster, but when I thought about Su Yuan's strength comparable to that of the great master, the feeling of unwillingness in my heart suddenly dissipated. Seeking mercy from a great master is not considered a loss of status. The people in the hall looked at the scene in front of them with some trembling hearts, especially the Lin family leader and the Black Mountain City Lord. They know exactly what the Grandmaster means, the Grandmaster who is now considered superior in their eyes. But he kept begging for mercy towards the young man. Presently, is this your son? Several business owners swallowed and couldn't help but ask Li Weifeng. They have limited horizons and do not know the meaning of Master's plea for mercy, but the power displayed by Su Yuan's raised hand cannot be fake. Li Weifeng looked at his son's back with disbelief. When did my son become so powerful? Okay, I'll ask again. Su Yuan glanced at the 2 masters and General Jing beside him, who was full of fear. Because I have something to ask, so the big handprint of the Immortal just now, it did not affect the other party. However, even so, General Jing's heart trembled, the gaze towards Su Yuan was filled with fear. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Which Gate? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Which gate, may I ask, sir? Jing must know everything without hesitation. General Jing is truly a formidable figure. After experiencing shock and terror, he quickly calmed down and respectfully said to Su Yuan. With the strength demonstrated by Su Yuan, killing him was just a thought, and since he hasn't died yet, it must be valuable. If you perform well, maybe you can save your life. Who is supporting you behind the scenes? Su Yuan stood still, his gaze fixed on General Jing. This is also his purpose this time, to figure out which forces are behind the scenes and causing chaos in the world. General Jing's expression was slightly hesitant, but when he thought about Su Yuan's methods, he spoke honestly, "I'm not sure about the specifics." 15 years ago, a person claiming to be from the woman in southern Xinjiang came up and said he could support my Jing family. Speaking of this, General Jing paused for a moment and continued, "Yan Lao and Lu Lao were also ordered by the Witch Gate to assist our Jing family. The Yan Lao and Lu Lao mentioned by General Jing are the two great masters who were just suppressed by Su Yuan Shun. The Jing family was able to grow into a rampant rebel army in just over a decade, and had a close relationship with the two great masters. There is a master sitting here, and there is more than one, even a pig can take off." Upon hearing this, Master Grey Robe and an old man surnamed Yen exchanged glances. The left protector of the woman's sect has met his senior. The right protector of woman has met his senior. Master Grey Robe and the old man surnamed Yen spoke at the same time. At this moment, they naturally dare not conceal anything. Although the reputation of the southern Xinjiang witch sect is not obvious, its potential power is very huge. It is said that this generation of witch masters has already entered the realm of great masters. With this background, even if Su Yuan wanted to move them, he had to estimate and assess. "So it's those stinky bugs." Su Yuan looked at the three of them respectfully, but his gaze was cold. In the fourth generation, Su Yuan was forced to become obsessed with exploring the realm of a master and traveled around the world as the master of the human immortal temple. He then had dealings with the southern Xinjiang witch sect. At that time, the woman clan, in order to resist the slaughter of Su Yuan, united forces from all over the world, gathered over 108 martial artists and tens of thousands of witches, and led Su Yuan into the 100,000 mountains of southern Xinjiang, attempting to completely retain Su Yuan. Unfortunately, just in person, more than 108 martial artists were then beaten into flesh by Su Yuan, and then left after slaughtering tens of thousands of witches recklessly. That battle was a river of blood, but almost no one knew about it. Even in today's woman, there are very few people who know about this matter. One reason is that too many people died at that time, and the woman lineage was almost wiped out for generations. Secondly, this matter is not honorable after all. The fewer people there are who ambush others but get killed, the better. The women are willing to support you, so it should be a request. Su Yuan glanced at General Jing and asked lightly. In order to support the rebellion of the Jing family, the woman's sect only produced 2 masters, let alone others. You know, this is a master. Even grandmasters in the first and second realms are extremely rare, and it is difficult to find one among millions of martial artists. Paying such a high price is definitely very demanding. The woman asked me to occupy the land of Qingzhou and Yenzhou, and then waited for the order. General Jing said truthfully. This is also the reason why the other 17 rebel forces attacked Baiyujing, while his Jingjun army marched southward. I see. Su Yuan sneered coldly. Qingzhou and Yenzhou are located in the south, and if they fall into the hands of the woman, with the cooperation of hundreds of thousands of troops, it only takes a few months to sweep through the surrounding provinces and easily occupy half of the territory of the Wu dynasty. That is to say, no matter who captured Baiyujing by the 17th rebel army in the north, the woman's side will definitely not suffer losses. Sir, I have told you everything I know. Can you spare my life? General Jing asked tentatively. Spare your life? Su Yuan shook his head and said, when did I say I'll spare you? Your Excellency doesn't intend to spare me. General Jing's expression changed. Just the next moment, General Jing's eyes darkened and he completely lost consciousness. Looking at General Jing's body, Su Yuan's eyes showed a murderous intent. Anyway, Su Yuan was also the founding ancestor of the Wu dynasty. The Jingjun did everything evil in the north, plundering all sides and even resorting to multiple massacres, causing the lower-class people to feel like they were dying. Just this point alone, General Jing and others were already dead in Su Yuan's eyes. Not to mention hooking up with the southern Xinjiang woman. Senior. The gray-robed Grandmaster's face turned pale, following the footsteps of General Bujing, but he died and fell. In an instant, only the last master surnamed Yen remains. You killed 2 masters of my witch sect, and the witch lord will not let you go. Grandmaster Yen, knowing that there was no escape, could only close his eyes and wait for his death. Although he did not suffer any injuries, he was as fragile as thin paper in front of Su Yuan, who was like a god and a demon. Don't worry, you won't die now. In the depths of Su Yuan's eyes, countless strands of divine intent intertwined, eventually transforming into an illusory lotus flower, planted in the eyebrows of Master Yen. Grandmaster Yen only felt a warmth in his eyebrows and then returned to normal. Before he could notice anything unusual about himself, he realized what Su Yuan had said. I won't die. Master Yen is unbelievable. Master Grey Robe is dead, can he live? Take this gift to your witch lord, tell him, if you dare to reach into the Wu dynasty again, I will go into the 100000 Great Mountain again and completely destroy the witch gate. Go now. Su Yuan waved his hand and ignored Grandmaster Yen. Can I go now? Master Yen, surnamed Yen, was ecstatic in his heart and turned his head to escape towards the outside. A hint of doubt flashed in his eyes. Gift, what gift? Anyway, regarding the appearance of a suspected Grand Master above the 4 realms in Qingzhou, we need to report it to the Witch Lord as soon as possible. Dead, General Jing is dead. And the Grey-Robe Grandmaster, also dead. Looking at the 2 corpses in the hall, everyone was a bit confused. The leader of the Jingjun, who was rampant in the north, died here like this. Su Yuan pondered in his heart, with my current strength, killing several masters in the 2nd and 3rd realms is not a problem. If I want to kill the great masters in the 5th and 6th realms, I will need to pay some price. Although Su Yuan is only new to the realm of a great master, his true strength is even stronger than that of an ordinary great master thanks to the means he has left behind for generations. No one under the martial saint can do anything about him. Su Yuan turned around and looked at Li Weifeng behind him. Dad, you should go back first. Okay. Li Weifeng's gaze was blank, obviously not reflecting from the scene just now. Lord Fuzuan, Su Yuan turned his gaze and looked towards Fuzuan of Heishan City not far away. Big, sir, the Lord of Heishan City suddenly exclaimed with a stirring spirit. I will stay here for a few days, during which time there will be no problems with the 300,000-strong army outside. You should immediately go to Qingzhou Prefecture and have the commander of the Black Armored Army come and take over this 300,000-strong army. Su Yuan spoke calmly. Although General Jing was killed and the troubles of the Jing army were resolved, there were still 300,000 rebels outside. Someone still needs to handle it. Except for Su Yuan, no one on the field can suppress these 300,000 rebels. Yes. Heishan city government solemnly said. At this point, he also realized the hidden dangers of 300,000 rebels, and if not handled properly, it may lead to very serious consequences. End of this chapter.